Welcome everybody to Essentially Dacob. Today I will be reviewing a crimson type of perfume. That's why we're flooded in crimson red, fading into red, both skin tone and clothing. And it is almost Halloween, so hence the whole attire and look and mood and vibe. But I think no better time than this time, and I've been waiting months and months and months for the right time to review TUBEREUSE CRIMINELLE in its current iteration, in its current form, Serge Lutens TUBEREUSE CRIMINELLE, in its skyscraper Art Deco inspired building, where I envision vampires to live and prosper long lives. For those of you who have seen my top 10 Halloween perfumes, in that list you find TUBEREUSE CRIMINELLE. It is an interesting switch between what I consider a vampire to smell like before they pass, well, as they're being transformed or as the living perceive them. There's a way you can smell a vampire when you're alive, and then there's another way you can smell a vampire once you are dead. There's a different perception of smell for vampires too, when they are alive, let's say still living, but have had blood taken from them, drunken by other vampires, and the living have already drunk the blood of the vampires. Then they are in the process of turning into vampires themselves. Once they pass away, they reawaken undead as fully pledged vampires. So there's that whole process between once you have drunken the blood of the vampire and dying. There's that whole process in between that happens of your life, which is kind of a hyper-sexualized type of life. You are constantly in a very sexual, horny type of pain as you are veering towards the death of mere mortals. Once you have passed away, you reawaken undead, a full-blown vampire, fully pledged vampire. TUBEREUSE CRIMINELLE represents, for the living, not so much. It's more for the dead. This is a very intense perfume that, even though it came out in the 90s, it's still, in its current formulation, no matter how they might have watered it down, it still represents a very specific type of camphorous, salicylates full tuberose. And that tuberose smells of engine oil. It could even be perceived as, and that's why we are in the crimson room, as one of the smells of the Red Room in Twin Peaks, in David Lynch's Twin Peaks. The Black Lodge, the motor oil or the engine oil that we are told that we smell as we approach the entrance to the Black Lodge in the woods surrounded by sycamore trees, that engine oil is the gateway to the Black Lodge and the Red Room. It is an engine oil. It is a burnt engine oil. It's a very specific smell described many times throughout Twin Peaks. But I wonder, once we encounter the dweller on the threshold as we enter that room, and we, by that room I mean the Red Room in the Black Lodge, that duality of us encountering our own mirrored image, good or evil, it's still a mirrored image, that moment has a smell. So we left behind us that motor engine oil smell at the entrance of the Black Lodge, and we are experiencing the smell of the afterlife with a memory of ourselves being alive while we are passing on through another realm, another plane of existence. That's when TUBEREUSE CRIMINELLE comes in. It's a criminal tuberose. Now, I would not call this criminal in terms of killer or negative. There's duality here again, and I keep mentioning this, and I will never stress enough to repeat it. There is duality within good and evil, and also between what is criminal and what is just. You could see it this way. You could say that Tubereuse Criminelle is criminal just because not everybody has smelled it, and it's criminal to not have smelt it. You could say it's criminal to not try to understand it. It is a criminal tuberose because it's a tuberose that openly speaks of its true intentions. It doesn't hide. It doesn't try to, through subterfuges, come to the point without really ever speaking its truth, which is what we know tuberose to be, because in history, we've heard it 1,000 times, we've read it in 1,000 books, we've heard it in so many different reviews of or descriptions of tuberose. In the past, young ladies were not allowed to pass by blooming tuberose, especially not at night. You have to stay locked in your room because the smell of the tuberose, the indolic smell, the typical indolic smell of the tuberose, which is the salicylates, the camphorous salicylate smell, which is a natural part of the tuberose, is what actually triggers that opiate type of sexuality, which within a flower, when they bloom and blossom at night and you pass by them, it does smell intoxicating. And it was said that young girls that were virgins would experience an orgasm if they passed by the tuberose, the blooming tuberose. So they were not allowed to pass by them because they were not allowed to lose their virginity to a flower, mind you. But little tiny flowers, each one of them has a microscopic amount of this indolic smell. All of them blooming together add up to a smell which permeates the air, and it can travel miles and miles and miles, and it lures you in, tantalizing, just like we see in many movies portraying vampires as being mist or fog or turning into something that is not definable by form or shape. It is something that lures you in without you really knowing what it is because it doesn't have a material shape. Many times vampires don't have material shapes. They are just mist and fog. In the same way, a tuberose lures you in. So of course it is compared to sexuality many a times, but the criminal tuberose is an overdose of all of those indoles, and it is no longer tantalizing. It is no longer delicately luring you into a moment. It is no longer telling you, hey, it's all going to be fine. It's not a banshee. It's not a vampire. It's not one of those creatures that lure you in with their beauty, youthfulness, gorgeous bodies, the mermaid song. No. Tubereuse Criminelle is stripped of all of the pleasantries, and it is that dweller on the threshold as you are encountering your double self and you are entering that state of mind of confronting yourself with yourself. So what we have here is a dangerous smell. It's not pleasant, not at all. But because it is so truthful, you can't help but keep re-smelling it. And I'm going to spray it on now. It's the smell of truth, basically. So in the opening notes, you almost get a spearmint, peppermint, camphorous, engine oil, like a benzene or gas smell. And it shocks you because it is poisonous. Poison is one of the key words here, and duality. Duality because, as I said, good and evil both blend here. We don't really know what is what. This perfume was launched in 1999. Christopher Sheldrake is the nose behind it. Listed ingredients: tuberose, of course, styrax, jasmine, another indole, clove, nutmeg, hyacinth, orange blossom, musk, and vanilla. You're going to get the vanilla, obviously, in the dry down. But at the beginning, you will get a strange engine oil scent with salicylates and something which is very similar to grapefruit. It is almost like a metallic grapefruit blended in with majestic flowers, and each one of those flowers bears a dagger. Only in the opening notes does this perfume deliver pain and shock, because it's the first time you're confronted with your shadow self. But as time progresses, the aggression mellows, and you start getting acquainted with your shadow self. You start getting acquainted with who you are in reality. You start realizing the duality that you possess within you is a duality everybody possesses within themselves. The tuberose is just showing you, hey, I do have this pleasant side to me, but if you overdose on me, I am not that pleasant. When I lose control, when nature takes hold of me, when instincts take hold of me, I do not control myself. There is no rationalizing it anymore. I lose all rationality. I lose all humanity. Love becomes all encompassing and the most important aspect of my existence. And just like in Dracula's life, you are ready to go to extra great lengths to obtain that feeling of love, to be with that person that you love, that means everything to you. And you're ready to deny the existence of any gods and nature and everything just to go and become one with that other self, which is your mirrored image, reuniting with yourself, again, duality. But a lot of people envision it as finding the girlfriend or boyfriend to live with them, to be together with them, to spend all eternity together. Now, we know that the lives we lead on this planet are limited. How much does a person entering your life really fulfill you? And how much must you first fulfill yourself in order to even be capable of loving somebody else? So when two meet, each one of the two sides needs to have already a very clear stability within themselves, because otherwise none of the two will be able to give to each other what should be given and what is mostly needed. I am filming this review live, so there are chats, live chatters in the chats. Edu Gomez, I've had this perfume for years, but the opening bothers me so much. I have come to love the opening because it's honest. Now, as it's slightly toning down, I'm already smelling out the jasmine, the hyacinth. It's softening up, and this is the magic of Tubereuse Criminelle. It starts off as a pungent dagger, and then it starts mellowing down, cooling down, softening down. And it turns into flowers blossoming in the night without any engine oil left. It's as if this perfume shows you like a mirror how the world truly is with all its monstrosities. And once it is sure and certain that you have understood it, that you have accepted it, that you have embraced the facts, then it allows you to live in that environment and find peace, because accepting the truth is always as if you were accepting peace. You let it in. And when you let Tubereuses Criminelle in, and it starts softening down, you start realizing, that pain in the beginning was worth it, was worth it. However, as oh so often it is in life, Tubereuses Criminelle does not allow us to just stay in that blissful state once we have confronted our own dweller on the threshold. No. It gives us a moment of blissfulness, but then as it dries down, it shows us death. And here we get to the point where I have an issue with Tubereuses Criminelle, because at a certain point within its dry down, it is one-to-one exactly the same as Christian Dior's Poison. Christian Dior's Poison, which came out in 86, so we're talking this one came out in 99, so we are 13 years later. So obviously took notes. There's a lot of Christian Dior's Poison in here, and the tuberose in Poison also has that type of rocky tuberose dry down. When the tuberose starts grasping back at its opening notes, and it compacts itself. It's not fluid anymore. Fluent. It becomes more rock hard and doesn't allow you in. So it's a smell that is soporiferous in a way. The camphorous aspect of it kind of returns, but it's as if it's been stripped of its corners and edges. It's kind of like it's almost like a kidney stone. It's like bile and a kidney stone. Kidney stone doesn't have a smell once you take it out, obviously, but it does have that, but only in the dry down, you guys. You don't get that in the beginning and in the middle notes, only when it goes to the bottom. Then you get that same note that you get in Poison's dry down, which I do not like. I have an issue with that one. And the same one is right here. And this is kind of, I think this is when the tuberose shows its most indolic self. It is the indoles of the tuberose that smell that way. The indoles that we have in jasmine, depending on if we're talking about jasmine sambac, the grandiflorum, there's a lot of different jasmines, right? But if we take the barnacle smelling indoles of the jasmine, they're very different from the indoles of the tuberose. But some perfumes manage to deal with those indoles much better. Carnal Flower comes to mind. Carnal Flower never goes into that indolic smell of tuberose in that kind of kidney stone type of way. This one does, okay? And it does a lot. So fascinating to note, when I spray this on perfume blotches or papers or even tissues, the dry down is heavenly. None of that indolic smell. And on little perfume cards, this one smells for 2 weeks, even longer. And it just becomes more and more beautiful the longer it's on that paper strip. And the longer it's on the paper strip and the more it starts smelling of a tuberose garden, very natural smelling. The problem is, on my skin, none of that happens. The beautiful floral moment fades out, and then we get that kidney stone. And this is where the duality kicks in again. There are those days when that type of gray hue to tuberose is something that psychologically and ideologically I can deal with, and I need it as a mood in my life. But on a daily basis, absolutely no. This one is not a perfume that I can wear on a daily basis. This one needs a state of mind. It's not just mood. You also have to be in a psychological, intellectual state of mind. You need to want to torture yourself somehow to enjoy this one. And as a conceptual fragrance, it works wonders because It's very daring. Even for today's standards, this thing is very daring. I am much more appreciative of this bottle than its OG version bottle. I think this delivers more the concept of what it is. It is black glass, but it almost looks like a vial of blood. The essence of life. And life is bitter. And there's that bitter hue that pops out from Tubereuse Criminelle after a certain point in time, after a certain point of development of this fragrance on the skin. And if you're into that, you're into that. But if you're not, you're not. Kira says, my all-time favorite. Oh, Poison is all your all-time favorite. Jesus says, yes, the Poison reference. Letty says, I adore Dior's Poison. I've been wearing that one since I'm 13 years old. Jesus says, on me, it's not indolic at all. In the dry down, I get a lot of sweet and incensey resins. The Styrax overdose. It stays minty on me, camphorous, minty, and at a certain point, you get the kidney stone. The Frankenstein tuberose, says Jesus, is Tubereuse Criminelle. The way Christopher Sheldrake dissected the molecular structure of the note and brought out all those dark camphor elements is pure master perfumery. It's art. Yes, I agree. Completely conceptual, very art, but it doesn't work as a everyday, all-day perfume. You have to understand it. You have to be ready to dissect it together with Sheldrake as he went on his journey to get to this perfume. You have to be ready to go on a journey of self-discovery and discovery of the fragrance as it's happening, as it's developing on your skin. Letty says, happy Crimson Wednesday. Hello, happy Crimson Wednesday to you too. Mrs. Blue says, has anyone ever smelled a tuberose in bloom? I did once. Knocks your socks off. Very heady. Yes, in the middle of the night, I have. And you should never come too close to them. You always have to let them come to you. That's a very specific thing about tuberose. Tuberose is like a Leo. You don't choose the tuberose. The tuberose chooses you. You can be sleeping in a house in summer where there's tuberose growing in the gardens. You can open your window and let the wind carry the scent of the tuberose into your room. That's the best way to smell tuberose. You come too close to it, it's killer. This is like you have moved into the, like Jesus said, molecular structure of the tuberose. You're not smelling it from afar. This one is you're moving inside of the flower and you're going to live there now. And you're going to die there too. Powerful, potent, not huge longevity on the skin, on my skin. A couple of hours and then it's gone. On clothing, it lasts for days. It is a projection beast in the opening notes. Later on, it stays very close to the skin. Despite the fact that there's so much power and strength in this perfume, it stays very close to the skin, at least to my skin. Leslie says, tuberose native of Mexico, cultivated by the Aztec. And they knew their magic too. So I'm telling you, this is one of the perfect fragrances for Halloween because it makes you confront yourself to your spiritual side, whether that be the negative or the positive. Enjoy Tubereuse Criminelle by Serge Lutens. I hope you've enjoyed this review. If you have, thumb up this video. Let me know what you think about Tubereuse Criminelle and Serge Lutens and Christopher Sheldrake as a perfumer in the comment sections down below. And until next time, never forget to never give up on Tubereuse Crimson love. Love you all. Spook you later.